Picture this, you and I are strolling through Lisbon, a city built on 7 hills, weaving between yellow trams, steep stairways, and narrow alleys that look like they belong in a postcard. But we're not just sightseeing, we are on a journey to understand how these hills physically shape the city's transport system and what that reveals about urban planning, mobility, and resilience. Think of it as a field trip, with fewer permission slips and more trolley bells ringing. This video is one of the episodes of Module 2 of Course 2, Case Studies on European Urban Planning. This module is named Planning Order versus Organic Growth, Grid versus Chaos, Controlled versus Evolution. Follow the whole course if you like the topic. I'm Khushman Masoumi. It's Urban History. Lisbon's topography is famously dramatic. The city rises and falls like someone trying to decide between landing and takeoff. Just to show how serious the slopes are, while many believe Lisbon is 100% uphill, in reality, about 73% of Lisbon's streets have slopes of less than 5%. Still, the remaining about 27%, they are steep. And steep means special transport needs. That's why engineer visionaries created funiculars, elevators, and narrow gauge trams specifically for those slopes. Why does it matter? Because when streets are steep and winding, conventional buses, standard trams, and long articulated vehicles might struggle. Parking becomes tricky, turning corners is risky, and drainage plus roadway damage accelerates. The topography forces constraint, which in turn forces innovation. Enter the iconic yellow tram, one of the Lisbon's most beautiful clichés, but also one of the most pragmatic transport solutions. The city's tramway network began as early as 1873 with horse-drawn trams. Electric trams arrived around 1901. Today, the system spans about 31 kilometers across 6 lines with roughly 60 odd trams in operation. What makes these trams unusual is their size. Many of the historic remodelado trams, dating from the 1930s, still in use. Their narrower width and short wheelbase allow them to hug the city's steep, twisting streets like mountaineers with crampons. It's like Lisbon said, yes, we can build hills, but we'll build trams to climb them in style. Here is a key point. Terrain drives mobility design. In Lisbon, roads and tracks must follow contour lines and steep grades, limiting where wide lanes and heavy vehicles can operate. Many historic trams are still used because modern long vehicles wouldn't fit in older streets. Funiculars and elevators like Elevador de Santa Justa were introduced to overcome steep climbs, almost like mechanical elevators for entire districts. This means that Lisbon's mobility is not simply bus plus subway, it's adapted to slope, scale, and historic morphology. Let's ride one of the famous trams together, say the legendary Tram 28. Starting at Martin Moniz, winding through Garza, Alfama, Baixa, and Campo de Urique, about 7 kilometers of route passing legendary viewpoints and steep slopes. Why does this matter beyond the tourist photos? Because this route illustrates how transport links high-density historic quarters packed into hills with flatter lower terrain. Without that, tram access would be harder, tours slower, and the slope a barrier rather than a link. The vehicles date back to 1930s and were explicitly designed for narrow streets and big climbs. In Lisbon, the street pattern was shaped by topography, narrow alleys, steep stairways, and low-rise buildings clustered on slopes. Transport had to fit this form. Trams, small and agile, funiculars where slope were too steep for wheeled vehicles, elevators linking vertical neighborhoods. In turn, transport influenced urban growth. Some hillside areas become connected and therefore developed because of a funicular or tram line. Others remained isolated. So you see a feedback loop, landscape to mobility design to urban growth to mobility demands. Of course, this journey has bumps and hills. Some key issues Lisbon grapples with are 1. Modernizing heritage systems. Those historic trams are charming, but they also pose maintenance challenges, capacity limits, and accessibility issues. Accessibility and equity. Some hillside neighborhoods are harder to reach by wheelchair or stroller because slopes are steep and transport options may be limited. 3. Cycling and micromobility. Despite the hills, 63% of roads in Lisbon have inclines less than 4% in modern districts, so cycling is becoming more viable. But historically, the hills were used as a reason not to cycle. The city is shifting that narrative. Historic and future needs. The city must retain its charm and heritage, those yellow trams, while also expanding capacity, reducing emissions, and ensuring transport for all. Integration of modes. Funicular plus tram plus elevators plus metro plus buses equals complex network. Ensuring seamless transfers and tariffs is a design and governance challenge. If you're studying urban planning or transport, Lisbon is a live case study of how geography dictates transport and how transport can overcome geography. Some lessons. Don't treat hills as terrains to overcome only. They can become identity assets. Lisbon's trams are part of what makes the city memorable. Fit vehicles to context. Narrow, steep historic streets aren't served well by generic buses. Transport can unlock hillside districts, both socially and economically, by linking them. Heritage systems can coexist with modern systems, but only if you invest in maintenance, accessibility, and capacity. And finally, cycling isn't impossible in hilly cities. With proper infrastructure and modal integration, you can shift perceptions. Let's walk a route. We start at the waterfront flat, then climb up to Alfama via Tram 28. We pass through facade-covered tiles, sudden steep turns, stair lanes, and feel like hiking trails disguised as streets. We roll past Miradouro da Garça, overlooking the Tagus. Every tilt of the tram tells us this city isn't built on flat ground, it embraces the climb. And then we ride down to Baixa, watching the slope drop and the tracks twist, and we think, if you'd built a big wide road instead of a tram, would the neighborhood still exist? Maybe, but perhaps with less character. At this point you'd probably say, are you telling me we choose trams so we wouldn't exercise? And yes, partly. We chose trams so the hills wouldn't win. There are some very important figures. Tram network lengths are about 31 kilometers in 6 lines. Network started as horse car line in 1873, electric trams from around 1901, historic remodelado trams from 1930s still in operation. Approximately 73% of streets have slopes of less than 5%, and approximately 63% of roads have inclines less than 4%. Cities globally, especially those in hilly terrains, can draw inspirations from Lisbon. Maybe you're working on a hillside suburb in Latin America, Asia, or Africa. The question isn't only how we flatten the terrain. Spoiler, you don't. It's how do we design mobility systems that respond to the hills and make them accessible, viable, and beautiful. Lisbon shows us one answer, and in an age of climate change, heritage tourism, and equity demands, the idea that the city must be flat for mobility is outdated. Instead, you can make the mobility fit for your terrain. So we wandered down a narrow street in Alfama, listening to the tram wheels up a steel gradient. Then remember, every bend, every slope, every turn is a part of the story. It's not just about seeing the city, it's about tracing why the city moves the way it does. Lisbon didn't win in spite of its hills. It built a transport system because of them.